that is the feeling of the new Premier League season upon us. But before we take a look ahead to the new season, let's have a little recap. Starting with Arsenal, they missed out on a top 4 spot for the first time under Arsene Wenger since 1996. 3 clubs from the northeast were relegated. Manchester United won the Europa League, booking their spot in the Champions League. And sticking with the Champions League, Liverpool booked their spot amongst Europe's elite. And in the end, it was Chelsea who were crowned the Premier League champions. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's see what 2017-2018 has in store for us. With the transfer window about to close, it looks like it's going to be a record-breaking window, with the Premier League clubs spending over $1 billion. And as you can tell from this table here, it's Manchester City that take the lion's share of that, spending over $282 million on their transfers. And most of it has gone on their defence.
The pressure is the same like last season, and we're going to make a good performance and win the games and try until the end of the season, fight for the titles.
Well, that was the Man City manager Pep Guardiola on the season ahead. Now, if we look at the table again and to the bottom half of it, the team that really stands out is Tottenham. They haven't spent a single penny in this transfer window. Instead, they've amassed around $96 million, and most of that came from the Kyle Walker deal from Spurs to Manchester City. And the Spurs manager, Mauricio Pochettino, isn't worried about the lack of transfer window action.
And it's a little bit difficult for a club like us, but we are follow our plan and try now that before the end of the transfer window to try that everything happen, that the target that we want and the player that we want to bring here.
So what about the newcomers to the league? David Wagner ranks his Huddersfield side as the biggest underdogs in Premier League history. But then again, they were also the underdogs in the second division last season. They finished 19th the season before to promotion via the playoffs. At Newcastle, Rafa Benitez is frustrated with the lack of action from the boardroom, but insists he'll stay at the club because he likes a challenge. And what Chris Hughton's done for Brighton and Hove is nothing short of a miracle. Brighton were close to non-league football around 20 years ago, and now they're in the top flight after a fair few misses.
What we know we are going into is a very challenging season, a very difficult season, where we've, over the last 2 seasons, competed very well in the Championship and won a lot of games. And it will be impossible to win the level of games that we've got used to winning. But that's a challenge of going into the Premier League.
And guess who Brighton have as their first opponents? Manchester City. Talk about a baptism of fire. So after topping up their air miles to China, the USA and Australia, and topping up their bank balance, normal service has been resumed because the Premier League is back.
It most certainly is. So to get a better feel of how things are shaping up over in England, so close to kick-off, we can speak to Darren Lewis, reporter for the Daily Mirror in London. Darren, lovely to see you. Now, it's going to be a record-breaking transfer window. They've already spent over $1 billion so far. But will that equate to some of the best Premier League football that we've ever seen?
I think it will. I would indeed, like Sam, drink a toast to the return of the Premier League, the most entertaining league in the world, and some would say the most competitive in world football. And I think it will indeed see a real festival of football over the next 9 months. We've got some of the biggest players, some of the biggest managers. You're seeing images of some of the best teams in the world. And I think over the next 10 months, we'll see a really tight, competitive kind of competition in many respects, because this year's competition in the Premier League, I would argue, is the toughest we have ever seen. 7 teams, all of whom reinforced during the summer. And I think those teams will compete for the title, and it will be really, really hard right now to determine who's going to win it.
Okay, so which teams are you specifically referring to? And do you think that there are any dark horses that we can expect after the transfer movements?
I don't think anyone's going to come out of the woodwork over and above the ones that we've seen already. Chelsea, the defending champions, have lost key players. They're about to lose Diego Costa. There is a lot of concern over the depth of that squad, but the first 11, very, very capable indeed. Manchester City have smashed up their transfer record. £257 million have spent so far. They're still interested in the rising star at PSG, Kylian Mbappe. Manchester United have smashed their transfer record to sign Romelu Lukaku, the striker. They've also strengthened in every area of the pitch, defence and midfield as well. And then you look at Liverpool, smashed their transfer record to sign Mo Salah from Roma, but still very much interested in the Southampton defender Virgil van Dijk, also interested very much in signing Naby Keita. It looks at this stage as though Leipzig might well keep hold of him, but they too, Liverpool, will keep hold of Coutinho. That's going to be a big drama played out in the final few weeks. And of course Arsenal as well, they've signed a new striker, £44 million. He is going to be a real contender in this Premier League. Spurs look the same, but they had the best balanced side in the Premier League last season. And then you've got Everton. They've spent over £120 million so far, almost ripped up their side that they ended last season with. They too, I think, will be in the shake-up as well.
Well, let's talk about the curious case of Tottenham, because they haven't really spent a dime so far this season. Now they've got those issues, of course, with Danny Rose, those statements that came out. What is going on at the club over there?
Well, I mentioned the fact that they've got the best balanced side in the Premier League. They ended up with the best defence and the best attack last season, even though Chelsea did go on to win the league. But lots of those players that you can see in the shot there feel that they're underpaid in relation to their counterparts at the other top 6 clubs. The highest earner at Spurs is Harry Kane. He earns as a basic wage less than £100,000 a week. How you and I would love to earn that kind of money. But I think as far as the other players in the top 6 are concerned, Raheem Sterling earns £200,000 a week. Daniel Sturridge can't get a game at Liverpool, £120,000 a week. Lots of other players who are not key figures in their top 6 sides are earning more money than the players who have been so pivotal to Tottenham's rise into the top 4. That's a problem this man Pochettino's got to wrestle with. He speaks tomorrow at his press conference. It'll be very interesting to see what he's got to say. But Spurs this season, you call them a curious case. They will indeed be that, because I wonder whether they can still retain their place in the top 4 if they are not strengthening and if the players aren't happy.
Well, I'm sure many of us are thinking the same. Well, Darren, thank you very much.